As an 80s kid, I loved Transformers. I watched the cartoon, had all the toys. Hell, I even had Megatron, the one that transformed into a gun. I did know that Transformers was aimed at boys rather than girls, but honestly, I didn't care. When Generation 2 was released in 1992, I was rather disappointed and subsequently ignored the other generations of Transformers as a female teen. On my personal life, it sucked. I got these shitty jobs such as mowing the lawn and worst of all, babysitting. I hated it a lot. You got bratty kids you have to take care of, which is really annoying. Yeah, I know I was a terrible babysitter, but it didn't matter, as I was saving money for a Transformers DVD of the original cartoon series. I was hired to the one house belonging to the Jacobs, and that I was there I had one of the strangest experiences I ever had. The Jacobs were going for a dinner party and had left me in charge of their son. The Jacobs had one son named James. Upon arriving, I was, to my surprise, he was a Transformers fan who owned some of the newer toys. Once the Jacobs left for their dinner party in the afternoon, they said they would be returning at around 1 a.m. I played with James and his toys until he and I were exhausted. It was around 7 p.m., and then I made the biggest mistake of my life. I asked James if he had watched the TV show, and he had said no. However, his father bought him a VHS tape from eBay as a gift. eBay? I never really trusted eBay. I'd gotten scammed on it a couple of times, especially this one period of time I wanted to get a pair of shoes, but I wound up getting something else a lot worse than that. I felt giving away your address to somebody else was also rather dangerous. I mean, I shouldn't be complaining. The VHS tape wasn't mine, it was James's anyway. James ultimately went to bed, just before he had got on his formula car bread, before I asked him if I could watch it, and he said of course I could. I honestly regret that ever since. And as soon as James had hopped into his bed, I left his room and walked downstairs to see Jacob's TV along with the DVD and VHS devices on a table that he had of DVD cabinets. I had looked through the cabinets to eventually find the VHS tape James had mentioned. The VHS tape covered had the Optimus Prime fighting Megatron with the stickers, Volume 1, More Than Meets the Eye. I took the VHS tape out of the box and put it into Jacob's VHS player. I switched the channel and sat on Jacob's sofa to begin watching, hoping to relax until the Jacobs arrived home. It was just a black screen at first, and I thought something was wrong with the TV. However, before I got up, Megatron's face appeared, and the image began to zoom out until Megatron's full body was revealed. He was standing next to an old man bound to a wheelchair. He looked at the man with hate and malice, while the old man didn't take any notice of him, as if he couldn't see him. Megatron lifted the steel right leg up and stepped on the man, presumably killing him. Megatron laughed at the man's demise, and I could see the man's wheelchair destroyed and crumbled under Megatron's foot. I was disturbed by the scene. I had never seen Megatron actually kill a human before. I thought this was some kind of homemade episode some creep made in their basement, but what was strange was that Megatron's voice actually sounded like Frank Welker. I mean, not today, but it was in the 80s during a recording. It was like the voice had never changed. It didn't help that it was raining on this particular night either. The laughing stopped, and it cut to a scene with Ratchet in his vehicular mode driving to an unknown location in the brief glimpse of what had appeared to be Optimus Prime sitting on one of those fold-away chairs on the table in the room, with no doors, and then it returned to Ratchet driving into its vehicular form. I knew something was going to happen. Ratchet was still driving when he transformed, indicating that whenever he was going to, he had arrived. It was the Ark laying in ruins, as it always was. Ratchet entered the Ark and seemed to be reminiscing memories. I thought about Megatron's siege on the Ark, but it wasn't as Megatron narrated the scene. He seemed to be talking to Ratchet. You remember. You remember when we got fused together. You remember the price of life. The price of life? I said to myself. But before I could contemplate what was happening, Kickback appeared and attacked Ratchet, and then a frame of Megatron's laughing face appeared for a short moment. Ratchet was knocked to the ground and was dragged away by Kickback, and then the scene changed to Spike McWay riding a bicycle with Megatron's narration kicking in. Spike Whittaky? What kind of name is that? You fleshlings in your names. Well, damn them! Damn them to the very earth you live on! A bus came howling at Spike and ran him over. Megatron commented on Wiki's death. Ha ha ha! How pathetic! Did your guardians ever tell you to watch the road? I guess not. I wish I had made use of the human companions. The frame of Megatron's laughing face appeared again, and it went to the next scene of Megatron towering over a cowardly Starscream in a corner. Megatron was pissed. So pissed that it was beyond humanly possible. You coward! You little waste of scrap! Starscream responded. But Megatron, don't Megatron me! I'm gonna show you what kind of hell I went through. This time you won't be coming back from this one. Megatron grabbed Starscream and threw him on the operating table and tied him down. Ratchet was on another operating table, also tied down. Ratchet pled for his life, but it was no use. Soundwave was also there next to Megatron. Megatron, don't do this! Just kill me! Just kill me! I'm not killing you, Ratchet. Soundwave, prepare for surgery. Yes, Lord Megatron. A surgical device came down from the ceiling and the Soundwave closed to two tables together forming one operating table. I knew what they were going to do, fusing Starscream and Ratchet together. The two hopeless Cybertrons pled for their lives, but it was denied. Soundwave turned it on and grabbed the device down to Starscream's and Ratchet's chest. Soundwave started from the very top of the head and started cutting. Starscream and Ratchet began screaming as Soundwave removed half of their outer bodies for fusion, and then stitched them together alive. Their torturing screams sounded like the voice actors were actually screaming in agony. Soundwave completed the surgery. Starscream and Ratchet were now in one being, now stitched together, due and tied to speak, but all their speech was just gibberish. Megatron was pleased and looked at them in the airlock. You two will be stitched together forever. Soundwave, open the airlock. Soundwave opened the airlock, and Megatron threw the Starscream Ratchet hybrid out into space. The duo still pleaded after being sucked out. The scene was over and showed a frame of Megatron's face again, and then it cut to a scene of Optimus sitting on the table as shown earlier. This time, a gun that appeared to be Megatron's gun mode. The gun started to talk to Prime. I knew that it was Megatron. Prime, I've been in this hell long enough. I've been treated like a toy for children. Young fleshlings would never understand my hell, my torment, my eternal fight with you. It's time to end it, Prime. I took care of some of your pathetic Autobots and your companions. There's no way out of this room. You can't escape, and soon I will destroy all of your Autobots. Now end it! That was the loudest rage I had ever heard in my life. Optimus grabbed the gun and aimed it at his head and spoke. No choice. No escape. I've died many times, but this time it's permanent. I can't take this fight anymore. He fired the laser gun. It cracked his head in surfaces. Mechanical parts flew out of the floor and Optimus Prime collapsed, probably killed by the suicide attempt. Megatron spoke one last time. Optimus Prime and the Autobots are history. Now I have the Matrix and I've turned this eternal fight in my favor. Hopefully the war will end and be my history. His voice suddenly turned to malice and anger. And soon you'll be history. An extreme close-up of Megatron's face appeared, and he was mad as ever. His eyes weren't just pure red like they usually were. Instead, they seemed to have small little dots in the eyes of pure rage. His teeth were clenched, and his mouth had some kind of substance dripping out, probably saliva. It lasted for 5 minutes, and the VHS tape ended, and the screen turned to blue and static. I was paralyzed on the sofa with the rain howling in the darkness of the night. I hallucinated Megatron's red eyes, and that's how scared I was. Just seeing Megatron's face was the freakiest thing I'd ever seen in Transformers. Thankfully, the Jacobs came home and saw me sitting on their sofa. They asked me if I was okay, and that took me out of my paralyzed trance. I lied to them and I said that I wanted to be paid. Mr. Jacob gave me $40 and I got the fuck out of there and to return home. I believed James was still sleeping, but I had forgotten about him. Once I came home, I didn't want to sleep after what I had seen. I was awake until morning, thinking about what I had just watched. I had a lot of questions, not only about how it was made, but what was it all meaning. This eternal fight obviously meant war between the Autobots and the Decepticons, but what were Spike's friends and Dad? Were they just other Autobots who got the original actors? Either that or they were really good voice impressions. I would never find out, and I doubt that the creators will actually make this as a finale. My life improved. I moved out and got an actual job. I regret just leaving there. I should have got the tape, but I didn't think the Jacobs live at the original house anymore, and I don't know if James actually watched it. If he did, he would have been traumatized and probably would have uploaded it to YouTube as an adult. I still love Transformers. I don't know if I would ever see it again, hopefully. If anything, though, that tape gave me nightmares for about 10 months straight after that. That incident somehow burned itself into my brain, as occasionally when I close my eyes, I see Megatron's angry face, complete with those angry, pissed-off looking dots in the center of them. And that, my little shadows, was Transformers. A Transformers Lost Episode creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? I really enjoyed the story. In fact, I found this to be one of the better, and if not the best kind of Lost Episode stories out there. I mean, sure, there were a few cliches and everything with them, but even then, though, they're very few. Like, there's probably, like, maybe one or two of them in the story. But the rest of the story in of its own self was very, very original and very new. For example, the, protagonist, for example, isn't one of your typical cookie-cutter protagonists. This protagonist and of their own selves are basically just your average, everyday kind of person that, well, is pretty much, describing who they are, who exactly they, what they do and everything's like such. And of course, the way the reactions and everything of the specific person was very real. I mean, now, of course, with that being said, though, like I said, there were a few cliches, but specifically the VHS tape from eBay and the dots in the eyes. I mean, the red eyes specifically. But that's about it, though. See, what I really enjoyed most about this story was the fact of the matter of the storytelling. This wasn't like, Optimus Prime, going crazy and killing everyone, or Megatron, doing something stupid or whatever and committing suicide, or... I mean, it's none of those things. In fact, it's probably far from any of those things. Basically, what it is just a story about Megatron finally having enough of everything, and, finally doing something about it. And if you've ever watched Transformers, I certainly have as a kid, I honestly, in a sense, was kind of rooting a little bit for the, Decepticons when I was younger. I mean, now, obviously, I could give two craps about, Transformers. I don't care about it anymore. But this story in and of its own self, I think, kind of sparked a little bit of an interest with it. But I loved everything about it. I liked the storytelling, I liked the way that this was written. Like I said, there were parts of it, like I said, that were not particularly, that were kind of, cliched. But other than that, though, the story was great. And don't get me started, however, on the freaking Starscream and Ratchet being sewn together. That right there was actually rather chilling to listen to read. I mean, it was rather chilling. I mean, it wasn't scary, but it was certainly kind of chilling. I mean, I actually visualized all of that going through in my head. And you know that when you have good visuals in your story, or you're actually seeing everything, you know you got yourself a very good story. The grammar is obviously very beautiful. The sentencing, the paragraph structure and everything is very good. I mean, it just really had a good build-up to everything. I mean, it was awesome. I enjoyed it. And, of course, even though this is simply my own personal opinions, if you guys... and if you guys disagree with me, that's fine too. Overall, though, I give the story a 10 out of 10. I found the story to be awesome. It was very well made, very well dealt with. It was just perfect in and of its own self. What did you guys personally think about this story? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you have personally done to help make this story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode, and Otterton, roll the outro.